Okay, anybody have any idea what this is a picture of? What country?
Netherlands.
There you go.
Ah, what gave it away?
Flowers.
That's right. Well, 100 years ago, about 110 years ago now, actually, Holland was the most Christian nation. Hey, drop.
Oh, gosh. Should I put it away?
Go on.
Empire.
Yeah. Anyway, Holland was the most Christian nation on the earth. About 90% of the people claim to be Christians. This man down here is Herman Bavinck. He was an elder in the Church of Holland. He was also prime minister. He also wrote many theology books. So Holland was very, very Christianized. Okay. My first life. Anyway, now today you go to Holland, and only 3%, and you think it's going to say only 3% of the people are Christians. No, it's worse than that. Only 3% of the churches in Holland are still being used as churches. They've been converted into libraries, bookstores, restaurants, theaters. And the actual Christian population of Holland is like 0.0003%. People do not recognize Christ. They do not recognize the Christian religion as anything they want a part of. So you think, how did that happen in 100 years? How did that happen in 100 years? Well, what happened is a thing called pillarization. And actually, you can look this up in Google or Wikipedia, and it'll talk about Holland as an example of this. And that is when a faction of society goes over to a corner of society, and they start banding together, and they do things by Christians, with Christians, for Christians, to Christians, by Christians, with Christians, for Christians, to Christians, with Christians, by Christians, and it's all building this little pillar, this little.
Here, let me have it over here.
No, we won't. We'll get out in a second. Okay.
Now we need to put it in the thing.
Okay. So, Ruth, it's not. Okay. So what happens with this pillar is that it becomes so incestuous and so top-heavy, before long it just falls, and it doesn't take long for it just to disintegrate. And that's what I believe has happened and is happening in Christianity in America. We go over this section of society, and we do things by Christians, with Christians, for Christians, to Christians, by Christians, and we're not going out into the world. And it becomes very incestuous, it becomes very unhealthy, and as a matter of fact, now what we've developed, especially in evangelical churches, is a fortress mentality. You know, it's safe in here in this fortress, it's safe in here in the church. Out there, ooh, they're the evil people. Ooh. And even our evangelism is sort of like safari trips where we go and bag our prey and drag them into the castle, you know. There was a statistic put out by Focus on the Family, but this is like 10 years ago. I don't know what the stats are now, but I think it's still pretty true. And that is that if a person becomes a Christian as an adult, within 5 years of becoming a Christian, they have no non-Christian friends left. And you know why? Because we drag them into the fortress. Come here on Wednesday night. Come here on Tuesday night. Do this on Sunday night. Come here and go away for the weekend retreat. Do this. Do this. Before long, you take up all their time, and you have them involved in the pillar. And they don't have any non-Christian friends left. And on top of that, in evangelical churches like I grew up in, not only do you have no non-Christian friends, but you also hear about the non-Christians in church, like the evil people that are taking over our nation. The people that are destroying Christianity. The people that you should stay away from unless you're preaching the gospel to them. Right? So what happens when you have a fortress mentality? You want to bring people into the building. So here's what we do to bring people into the building. Come to church, we have donuts and puppies. Billions souls saved. Come on into our place. It's such a neat place to be. You won't believe how great it is. Come on, go into the building. I was part of a denominational church planting group. Matter of fact, when we moved here, I was going to plant a church here, but I've decided not to do that. But anyway, I went to these meetings, and the number one question, it always devolved into this one question, time after time after time. What can we do to bring people into the building? What can we do to bring people into the building? And that's not the issue. That is not the issue. Okay? It's not how Jesus did ministry. You know, don't you read in Luke that, you know, Jesus had a sign on his house that says office hours are between such and such and such and such. Come and see me then. And Sunday morning services, or this, right? No, he didn't do that. He was constantly out amongst the people. And especially, he didn't go to the church people. He didn't go to the church people. He didn't hang around with church people a lot. Okay? And we realized that we were part of the problem. 20 years doing peculiar people, we were part of that thing. Come to our church, we got peculiar people. Come to our church, we got drama. Not only that, but we would say, during this time, we wanted to make enough money, we wanted to get famous enough that we could start a training center for Christians in the performing arts. And why did we want to do that? Because we could do our thing and those evil Hollywood people would do their thing. We could do our thing and show good Christian plays, and the non-Christians who maybe come and become Christians. Right? Us versus them, those people, those people, those people, those people. And it's pretty amazing how intrinsic it is to our way of thinking as evangelicals. But God heard our inner prayers and our hearts, and he decided to do something about it. In the last 2 years, I was in Franklin, Tennessee, when we were in Peculiar People, we're thinking about moving here. I started listening to Tim Keller about 2 hours a day. I was walking like 2 hours a day, and I would either listen to the same sermon over and over again, or 2 or 3 sermons while I was out. And we moved to Greensboro. Okay? And we came and decided to conduct an experiment. And that experiment being, what would it look like if God moved into the neighborhood?